Is the MCU so back? Is this the Marvel movie that we've been waiting for? Did Marvel do its big one with this one? The answer to all of that is a big fat yes. I'm sure by now you've guessed that we're talking about, well, you actually clicked on the video and the title says Thunderbolts and we have a thumbnail as well, so you already know what I'm talking about. Anyway, in today's video, we're taking a deep dive into why Thunderbolts is that Marvel project. Let's get into it.
Bring light from the darkness.
I want us to take a look back into all the times that Marvel has done its big one with its past projects. Some of my favorite Marvel projects have been Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and for me, the biggest standout out of every single Marvel project has been WandaVision. When you put all these projects together, there is a through line through all these projects that make them so good. The number one aspect being their characterization. In each of these projects, you don't have characters who are archetypes of superheroes. Even when it comes to storytelling and the way these characters are portrayed, Marvel veered away from the traditional way in which it decides to tell the story of a superhero. In Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Bucky slash the Winter Soldier has layers of trauma that unravels as the storyline unravels. In both Black Panther movies, the anti-hero or the villains are not these cardboard cutouts of what a villain ought to be. You buy into their logic. You understand why they are these morally quote-unquote gray characters. And to a large extent, you also question, are they actually morally gray? Especially when it comes to Namor. I could write a whole thesis about WandaVision, but if you want to hear me go into a deep dive of why WandaVision is what it is, you can check out my last video where we go into a comparative dive into Thunderbolts and WandaVision, especially the way the themes of loneliness, grief, and trauma are explored within those two projects. Every single thing that I've just highlighted that made me fall in love with those Marvel projects, they are all present within Thunderbolts. As an audience, when I am consuming a piece of media, I need to be able to find myself in the character, in the storyline, in the themes. And this movie, from its opening scene, had me on a chokehold because of how uninhibited they were in their portrayal of loneliness and depression and the void we have all, in some aspect or the other, have experienced or dealt with. The movie literally opens with a monologue by Yelena introspecting on the emptiness in her life, which she characterizes as
There's something wrong with me, an emptiness. Now it feels like something bigger. Just a void.
From that very moment, I was like, oh, okay, this got too real, but Marvel, you have me now. And that sense of relatability doesn't start and stop at the opening scene. It continues throughout the movie through different characters, through different scenes, through different dialogues. Whether you see Walker doom scrolling and losing himself within that virtual cage we all find ourselves in sometimes when we don't necessarily want to confront our emotions, or Bucky giving a speech about how he's been there before and the only way to get through is to go through it. And I know some people had a quip with they didn't go far enough or dark enough or deep enough. I would disagree. I think instead of making it darker, which I think they did, they gave mental health struggles a tangible structure, which is something that we often don't see. And they even did that with WandaVision. First of all the characters relate to each other through their shared experiences of loneliness, of grief, of trauma, of depression, of anxiety, of guilt. Thunderbolts is supposed to be a movie about a bunch of misfits, about unconventional heroes, and they find an unconventional way to tell their stories. There are a lot of moments where you will genuinely laugh out loud, especially through the character of Alexei slash Red Guardian. He has some of the best comedic moments in the movie, but each character on their own are also funny as hell, especially the introduction of Bob, the whole scene building up to him being Sentry.
Oh, no.
Who are you?
I'm Bob.
I have watched the movie 3 times now, and I have genuinely laughed at the same moments every single time, which only lets you know how good these moments are constructed, that even on your third watch, the quality of comedy is still there. In the past, Marvel has failed in their depiction of vulnerability because they always dial down the raw emotions by forcefully inserting comedy. And here they do such a good job at balancing the raw, dark emotions out with the comedy. The movie starts on a dark tone, there's comedy, and then there's still dark tonality to it, but at no moment you're taken out of feeling the somber emotions because the director or the story writer doesn't trust you enough to sit with those emotions. They allow you to sit with those emotions. They make you think about those emotions. Hell, they even make you feel. I have cried all 3 times watching this movie. I know right now there's a lot of online chatter over whether Walker is being redeemed. And that's another aspect in which the movie excels for me. At no point it is trying to tell you how to feel about these characters. It indulges in a restrained exposition of these characters in a way where you are left to interpret whether you like the character, dislike the character, but still feel sympathy for them. You're not supporting the character, but you still have compassion for them. And that is the mark of an excellent writing team as well as a director who is not forcing their own agenda down your throat. At no point they're being made into these pious iconographies or idealized beings as the Avengers were. Iron Man was never humanized because you were supposed to worship him and idolize him. They could not even make a genuine effort at delving into Thor's depression because he had to be a godlike figure at the end of the day. But here, all of that is taken away. Yelena is allowed to be her raw, authentic, vulnerable, funny, sassy, even at times cruel self. I also love when a movie goes into a meta narrative. There is a scene in the climax where Yelena and the entire team looks at Bob and they're like, "Show us the worst," and they walk with him through his worst and accept him and love him through his worst. And I believe that's the journey that the movie wants to take you on. It wants to show you the worst of these characters, or it has shown you the worst of these characters, and you walk through the worst, and then it's up to you whether you want to accept them and love them as characters through their worst. We all know the infamous piece of criticism that the MCU received, that it is not cinema or something like it tarnishes cinema. But this movie technically is so good that you simply can't ignore the artistry that went into making it. In a behind the scenes video shared by Marvel, you're able to explore the technical ingenuity of this movie, from refraining from using a lot of CGI and incorporating real life stunts, practical sets, to the lighting of this movie. All of these things are key in storytelling, but even one step beyond, when you're using real sets, when you're using practical sets, when you are incorporating lighting as a way to tell a story, it doesn't only add heft and complexity to the storytelling, but as an audience, it also adds to the pathos that is being evoked in you. It also makes for a great moving watching experience. In one of the opening scenes, Yelena is fighting in a corridor and the camera is set up above them. So you have an aerial view of a fight scene. The way that scene is conceptualized, you see shadows and you see shadowy figures engaging in that fight scene, which is a foreshadowing of what happens when the void comes and how he turns people into shadows. One of my favorite action sets in the movie is the knife scene when all the Thunderbolts first meet each other in the bunker. They're all fighting each other, and there's a knife passed from the first, second, third, fourth, and it goes back to Yelena. I screamed because that was just, oh, that was such a beautifully choreographed and conceptualized scene. Again, I've seen this movie 3 times, so I've had a lot of times to indulge in this movie from different perspectives, paying attention to different parts. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, or for me, like a technically almost perfect scene is when there's the transition from Yelena looking into the mirror, seeing Bob in the mirror, and then the camera turns.
Kind of dims the lights in the bathroom and allows her, and in one shot we sort of pan and dolly and push her into this space.
I didn't know that that was done in one shot because they had built the set like that. So it goes from her looking into the mirror at Bob to turning and then actually seeing him there. And lighting was used so perfectly in transitioning into that scene, as well as the scene plays out. You'll see there's a flare behind Yelena, and depending on the emotional tone of her dialogue. Her dialogue oscillates between bringing light into the darkness that Bob is engulfed in versus his darkness overshadowing what Yelena is trying to say. And that is constantly mirrored through the lighting being dimmed or bright in the back. Again, beautiful. And the master stroke in this movie for me was the conceptualization of the void darkness trauma, our what Lewis Pullman characterizes as shame rooms, to give them that physical dimension of shame rooms. Because neurologically speaking, they exist as, I don't know, brain, memory cells, whatever. And these are intangible conceptualizations that we don't always understand. But to give them a physical 3D state and then make you understand how our brain sometimes becomes a war zone, because that is how we are living in these memories. Bob physically sitting in a place of trauma is how we constantly replay traumatic incidents in our life and remain stuck within them and allow the darkness of that time to engulf us and paralyze us. And then comes the beautiful, uplifting conversation between Yelena and Bob, where she's like, you can't just stuff it down. But most importantly, you can't do it alone. And then all the team come together. Now I'm just going to cry again. Now, definition of last but not least, the acting performances. Oh my god, where do I even start? Standout for me immediately, Lewis Pullman. First of all, can Lewis Pullman share his manifestation secrets with us? Because how do you, number one, get to be in a Marvel movie? I need that ASAP. Number two, you get to portray three characters with three different shades in one movie. He's introduced as Bob, this frazzled, confused, mysterious, drowning in shame and guilt and schizophrenic character. And then he goes into Sentry, quote unquote, the strongest of all. Even after you put all Avengers together, he's stronger than all of them. And then to playing the Void, which is this shadowy figure literally embodying and personifying the darkness within. Florence Pugh. You hear Florence Pugh and you just know that you're gonna get the most genius cinematic experience of your life. I am so happy with what she's doing, what they're letting her do, what they're doing with her within the Marvel Universe. If you've been an MCU fan, you know that this fandom has been, well, some of us, again, the fanboys, get the hell out of my face with your misogyny. Scarlett Johansson's character walked so that Yelena is running a marathon right now with what she's doing with the character of Black Widow. In the scheme of MCU and female portrayal, of course, the Scarlet Witch, oh my god, she's right there, mother. But I love, love, love what Yelena is doing. This girl was never introduced as a morally upright or white character. She's always been morally gray, and I could not have thought of anyone better than Florence. I am so excited to see what she does. I I swear if Marvel touches her in Doomsday or Secret Wars, Marvel, count your days. again, just because I'm highlighting some of the characters doesn't mean I'm discrediting everyone else. Sebastian Stan, Daddy, oh my god. The Winter Soldier slash Bucky was actually one of the first characters that I really fell in love with because of how much backstory they gave him, and he is someone with one of the most heartbreaking arcs. Side note: why are they making my husband's fight? Why why is Sam and Bucky fighting? I I don't need that. I need them to walk hand in hand into whatever the fuck is going to happen in Doomsday. Cause this divorced parenting thing right now, I'm not down for that. I really hope that each and every single one of you get to watch this movie more than just once. Above all, for just the validation that this movie gave us to folks who live with this void or this fear of the darkness that resides within us due to our mental health struggles. I think it's the biggest gift. It's the biggest hug that you could give yourself visually when you're watching this movie. Those are my thoughts on the movie. Those are my standout moments or aspects that make this movie a peak MCU project. I would love to hear from you. What did you like the most? What you didn't like? What would you want to see in the future from these characters? Thank you so much for taking the time out for watching this, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.